Hey everyone, I wanted to make a quick video on this upcoming NFL slate here on Christmas Eve. We got the same old tournaments, Millie Maker, satellites, just everything going on. So, although it's the holiday season, nothing different in DFS. So, let's, get started on today's slate. So, you have the Cowboy stack that's going to look good. And that can be Prescott, Lamb. You can start off with that. It's obviously going to be expensive, but it's expensive for good reason. It's a good stack. You could do Prescott and Pollard. So I mean, it doesn't really matter what you do with this Dallas team. They have so many weapons. So it's up to you to choose. But I'd say the obvious best stack would be the Lamb and Prescott, but it's also going to be probably the highest owned and the most expensive. Um, and if anyone's new here, I just want to give a quick overview on NFL. NFL is not like by any means my best sport. I'm no expert, but you don't really need to be, right? Like if we're talking about MMA DFS, I could talk it through 10 times over and feel really confident in what I'm saying. NFL, I'm not to that level yet, but it doesn't matter because there's only a few things you really need to know. Number one, correlation. Correlation in NFL. What do people mean when they say, a stack, a bring back? Essentially, it's pretty easy, right? So your QB, right? You want it to be correlated with at least one of your receivers. So Prescott and his wide receiver one, CD Lamb. That's a stack. That's what you call a stack. You could do a double stack. So you could go in here and put Pollard as well. Now you have Prescott plus two Dallas offensive players, and that's called the QB plus two. You can maybe switch out Pollard for another one of his receivers, Cooks. That's a QB plus two. So those are what stacks are. You're just correlating your QB with his receivers, either wide receiver one, wide receiver two, tight end one, wide receiver one. It really depends on where the value is on that day and the team itself. For example, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey, that would be like the prime stack for that team. Whereas most other teams, it's usually the wide receiver one and not the tight end. So it depends on the team, depends on the pricing, the value. It's slate dependent, but those are stacks in a nutshell. And then what a bring back means when people say, oh, I'm going to bring it back with so and so, you're just choosing a player from the opposite team. So, for example, an easy one would be Tyreek Hill, right? And the idea is that if the Dallas Cowboys are doing really well, Prescott's throwing touchdowns to CD Lamb, they're putting up a ton of points, then Miami's going to be playing catch up the whole time, and they're going to need to access their receivers, especially their receiver one in Tyreek Hill, to catch up. And if that happens, if they do catch up, then Tyreek Hill is going to have a good game as well. So it's just a mini correlation within the game. So that's game stack, bring backs. Tyreek Hill would be the bring back of this game. And so yeah, that's just the basic concept that you need to know. So as far as the best stacks, the Bears are showing up, so you could go Justin Fields, uh, DJ Moore. And another thing too, people will ask, well, should I do a QB plus one, a QB plus two? And like I said, it's game dependent, it's QB dependent. In general, when a QB has rushing upside, so Fields, for example, he has rushing upside. So you might only need a Fields plus one. Field plus more. If you wanted to go even cheaper, you could go, Fields plus Komet. But yeah, you really only need one for him. Now that's not like a set in stone rule. It's just a general rule of thumb. When you have a QB that can rush, You only need one of their receivers. Okay. So the Bears are going to be a good stack today that are showing up. Uh, the Cowboys as well, and then the Vikings also. Um, and I know, I mean, it feels uncomfortable to take some of these teams, but you have to kind of remove yourself from that sort of thinking when you're playing DFS. It's the bottom line is that these projections and all that are somewhat accurate. And if you let your gut drive you towards decisions too much, you're just going to lose money long term. That's just the reality. If you're going to play, you have to play, you know, using some sort of system. And so the system this week is telling you that, hey, the Vikings are showing up as a good, value stack because of how cheap Mullins is. Now, if Mullins was the same price as Prescott, of course, it wouldn't be a good play. But it's all about pricing. It's all about ownership. You have to take into account all those things. So you could do a Mullins. Um, where is he? Oh, there he is. Justin Jefferson. Yeah. So you could do a Mullins Jefferson stack. That's pretty simple. Maybe double stack with Hawkinson. It'll be expensive, but if you can get to other lower value spots, then this could work. Um, yeah. And then another thing I want to say about NFL is the projections. The only way you can really kind of stray away from them is if you're following basic rules. So, for example, on like a 2 game slate, like yesterday for NFL, I build a stack for every team. I don't care if they're a 12-point underdog, 12-point favorite, whatever. I'm building a stack for every team because all you really need is the correlation. For example, I had a Steelers stack yesterday with Rudolph, I think the QB's name was, and Pickens. It absolutely went off. And before the game, you could have been like, "Oh, I don't like any of these Steelers pieces. I don't think." But the the reality is, you should be making stacks for many different teams. Like if I wanted to, I could go in here and make a stack for all of these teams, and I only have to be right about one thing. If the Dolphins go off, then my stack is going to go off. So that's one thing too. And on a huge slate, you don't have to make a stack for every team, but don't limit it to just because you think Cowboys are a good team and you think it's a good stack. Don't make 99% Cowboy stacks. Diversify. Do a Cowboy stack. Do a Bear stack. Do a Lion stack. Do a Jaguar stack. Like you just whatever you think. The top five at least teams to stack are. Do them. Do all five, if not more. Yeah, it's not a bad thing to diversify in NFL because of the correlation. So you just need to be right about one thing, and your entire stack will do well. So now I'm gonna see if we can build a sample lineup. So we'll go with the Mullins value at QB. Get him with Jefferson, and then for running back in general, I kind of like to just go for like who's showing up the best. That's like kind of in this mid-range price. I'm not trying to get too fancy with running back. I'm just going with what the projections are telling me. If you want to get fancy, do it in with a receiver. Do it with a tight end or a wide receiver because those positions are just a lot more volatile. Yeah, and if you're gonna get weird, do it in these two positions. Running back, in general, it's not the best idea to try to get crazy at running back. So we can go like Brees Hall was showing up good. James Conner as well. Um, Tight end, I guess we could. McBride is always showing up as a good point per dollar play. He's getting a lot of work over at Arizona. And then defense, just the cheapest defense that'll rate well for me. I don't really, I really never like to spend up for defense. Like that's like my thing. I like to stay like below this 3.2K range on defense because it's a very volatile position. and then it allows me to go up and spend up in other more important positions, in my opinion. Okay, wide receivers. We could go St. Brown as a bring back. So we have the Mullins, Jefferson, and then we have St. Brown as the bring back receiver on the other team. And then we need one more guy. Uh, Garrett Wilson was showing up as a good value, so we could hit that. And then we got one more spot left. We have 2,200. Okay, so that's not gonna work. How did I get? What Thielen? I put. Okay, so 2.3K left. Okay, do we have any options? No. Okay, so we need to fix something. Hmm. So maybe we could look to get a little bit cheaper at tight end. Let's see what we have. We could go down to like Tucker Craft. I'm fine with that. And then flex. Now we're left with about 4K. Uh, hmm. And I mean, yeah. So now we kind of don't want this. We want to go back and get someone, a little bit more expensive in this last spot. But like that's a general idea of how you could build the lineup. Uh, First of all, I recommend you have access to some sort of projection system, whether it be stochastic, SaberSim, whatever it be, even like your own projections, just something. And then go through your projections and go through, what's showing up as a good play and just start building the lineup. If you get run on a salary, take out one guy, put a different guy in, that's cheaper. And that's how you can kind of hand build. And if you're using like SaberSim and you're just running lineups and just kind of letting it do its thing, that's honestly pretty good. Like SaberSim and all these optimizers, they do a really good job. Like it's hard to imagine like that you always think that you can do it better, like the sports. That's usually not the case, right? The A machine can do that kind of thing a lot better in general. Uh Sports betting DFS, it really has almost nothing to do with the sports and everything to do with the data. That's something you kind of got to get through your head if you're going to be playing somewhat seriously or even just for fun. I mean, you still want to have a good chance to win. So yeah, keep that in mind. Use your projection systems. If you don't have them, I hope I gave you like some decent stack ideas. So here's some Bears, Vikings, Cowboys stacks. Here's some RBs that showed up as good value as well. Gibbs is a little bit more expensive though, but if you can get to him, he's a good play. Wilson, London, two good value wide receivers, and then tight end. I mean, Laporta, Hawkinson, McBride, Ingram. There's a lot of good options there. And then defense, the cheapest one that rates well was the Buccaneers. And then maybe you could go up to like the Jets. But yeah, that's it. That's my recommendation. You know, in general, if you're gonna build like a stack, or no, sorry, if you're gonna choose a QB that doesn't rate well, just make sure you're stacking him like at the very least, because you could have five different stacks and you only need one of them to go off to do really well. So diversify your stacks. Kind of eat chalk at running back is my general thinking. I don't really try to get too weird here. Wide receiver and tight end is where you can maybe get a bit different and a bit weird with, and use your gut a little bit on a player that you think might go off. And then flex in general on DraftKings, you want it to be a running back. But again, that's not a set in stone rule. It's just a rule of thumb that most people follow in general. Is receiver over running back in this flex spot, and then defense, I usually like to just go as cheap as possible. So I hope that helps a little bit. Again, NFL is not like my expert sport, but it looks pretty complicated. You got all these positions, but it really isn't. It's just QB, pass catcher, bring back, you know, two somewhat cheap running backs, tight end, and whatever you want really in flex. So yeah, just stick to those basic principles. I hope this helped out a tiny bit. Uh, and yeah, I think I'm gonna do more of these NFL videos because the sport is really not too difficult. Obviously, you have to have a lot go your way. There's so many games. There's so many players on any given Sunday that can break a slate. So you still gotta have a lot go your way. But the concepts and the strategy in general is not that difficult. So happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas, and I hope you guys do well on this NFL Sunday. I will see you guys in the next one.